Are you tired of programmed drums sounding flat and lifeless? Well, then this video can be a lifesaver for you. Hi, I'm Stefan from Mix66, and in this video I will show you some tips and tricks to make your programmed drums sound incredible. Programming drums is somewhat of a standard today, and the reasons for that are many. No budget, no time, no recording facilities for drums, or the drummer is simply not good enough to record drums in a studio situation. So programming drums is a great alternative to recording drums, but it has to be done properly. When it's done correctly, it will sound great, and many people can't even tell the difference between live drums and programmed drums. Drums are so important for the groove and the feel of your production. So when you are going to program your drums, you have to make sure to make it correctly. Badly programmed drums will ruin your production. As I said in other videos, drums are like the backbone of your production. If your drums don't sound good, your whole production will sound amateur, and I'm sure you don't want that. With great sounding drums, even if they are programmed, your whole production will sound better. Your production will be more interesting and engaging for your audience. You will stand out from the crowd and attract new fans. So let's jump into the DAW and see how we can achieve great programmed drums. So here we have a project where I already created some examples. The first thing I want to talk about is the sampler. Before you even start to program drums, you have to choose the correct sampler. There are many samplers available online for every single genre, so choose wisely which one you will use for your production. It will not only affect how the production will sound, but also a drum sampler that suits the style of music you are writing will inspire you while you create your drum parts. To demonstrate how important the drum sampler itself is, I have two grooves for you. One is a jazz groove, the other is a metal groove. We will listen to them once with a jazz kit, so a jazz drum sampler, and then with a metal kit, so a metal drum sampler. We will start with the jazz groove played through a jazz drum sampler. Now we will listen to the same groove played through a metal sampler. It was the exact same MIDI file, first played through a jazz set and then through a metal set. And of course, it works also the other way around. Listen now to a metal groove played through a jazz kit. It just sounds awkward. The same exact MIDI groove played through the metal kit. Next, let's talk about the biggest mistake I see people doing: velocity. Velocity in the context of drum programming means how hard the drummer hits the drums. In real life, no drummer, not even the best ones, hit the drums always the same way. They play ghost notes, double strokes, and so on. Adding variation in the velocity of your drum hits can give your drums a more human-like feel. Experiment with different velocities to create a more dynamic and interesting drum pattern. One tip: especially cymbals sound robotic pretty fast. Before I show you an example how velocity can affect your drum groove, I want to talk about a very interesting concept that the world famous drummer Benny Greb has talked about in one of his educational DVDs. It is the concept of the captain. So for every genre you have a captain. With captain, he refers to single shells or even cymbals that lead the whole groove. For example, in jazz, the right cymbal is the most important part of the drum kit. For rock and metal, it is the kick and the snare. And for more like the electronic music, EDM, techno and so on, it is definitely the kick drum. So this is one of the first things you have to consider when thinking about velocity and drum programming. For which genre are you writing your drum parts? To get an idea which parts of the drums are most important for your genre, just listen to other famous productions of this genre. Analyze them and you will see which parts of the drum set should be louder and which one should be quieter. And then simply apply that to your MIDI file. Here I have an example of a simple rock beat. The first two bars are with kick and snare relatively low and the hi-hat loud, and the next two bars are like it should be, with loud kick and snare hits and a quieter hi-hat. Listen to the difference that the velocity makes. I mean, it's pretty obvious for rock and metal you want the sound of the last two bars. Next, we will have another example of how important velocity is. Here we have a MIDI file where the velocity of all hits are 127, so the maximum. If you think about how drum samplers are recorded, you understand how in real life no drummer can recreate this groove. For drum samplers, they record single hits, so for maximum velocity, the drummer can hit the drum as hard as possible. Then he gets rest and hits the drum again as hard as possible. But in the context of a groove, this is just not possible. That is also why this drum groove sounds so unnatural. Now listen to the same groove with a more realistic velocity. Not all the hits are at 127, and there is also some more variation to it. So not all the notes have the same velocity. I even added some ghost notes to enhance the groove and feel of this MIDI file. Listen once again to the difference. We will start first with all velocities at 127 and then the more human-like version. Which version makes you want to move your head? I guess it's number 2. Another important aspect of velocity and drum programming are natural dynamics of a drummer. For example, if a drummer plays a double stroke on the kick drum, the first stroke is always a bit quieter as the second one. This is just because of the way drummers play double strokes with their kick pedal. Just for demonstration, I will invert the velocities of these double strokes on the kick drum. Listen how unnatural that sounds. Okay, this may be a little bit over the top, but listen once again to the original and how much more natural that sounds. Another important part of drum programming is which cymbals are you using. For the shells, it's normally very obvious, so for rock and metal grooves you use kick and snare and you use toms for fills. But with cymbals you have more options. You can use closed hi-hats, open hi-hats, semi-opened hi-hats, you can use ride, you can use the bell of the ride, you can use crashes, you can use chinas, splashes. You see, you have many options when it comes to cymbals for your grooves. Just listen to this riff where every 4 bars the cymbal changes. You will hear that the whole feel of the riff changes due to another cymbal. I've prepared another example to show you the difference that half time, normal time or double time can make. The last 4 bars were just an example how you can get creative while programming your drums. And this is also the next step for you. In the context of this video, I cannot show you all the possibilities you have when creating your drum grooves. Just play around with different grooves, different kick patterns, different snare placements. Be creative and have fun while creating awesome drum grooves. The last tip that I want to give you today is that you don't necessarily have to program your drums from scratch. You could also record the drummer with an eDrum kit, so you have the MIDI file of his performance. You then have all the possibilities with MIDI to change the drum grooves and to edit them. You could also take this technique a step further. The drummer could use eDrum shells but real cymbals. So you have the realistic sound of real cymbals but all the flexibility of MIDI shells. I will make a video about this technique in future. So these are my tips and tricks for programming drums. I hope you have learned something today, and if you want some great drum samples, then you can click the link in the description and you can download my drum sound saver samples for free. As always, leave me a comment, hit the subscribe button and see you next time. Bye.